You know, some scriptures are just very difficult to explain. And I mean, really, really difficult to explain. So let me give you two of some of the scriptures that I know for a fact that they are true, but I think they are very difficult to explain. In Luke chapter 18, verse 1 precisely, this is Jesus speaking. And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men always ought to pray and not faint. So let me get this straight. Jesus took his time to tell a whole parable just because he wants to pass one message. And the message is that men are supposed to always pray and should never faint. Now, the fact that Jesus went all out to give an entire parable just to pass that point tells you that this must be so important to him. But the point is, always pray, not faint. How do you even reconcile that? Or maybe let me show you one more. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 17. It says, pray without ceasing. Literally, pray continuously, always. Okay, I have a 9 to 5 job. I have a business to run, a family to run. Just so many things that I have to do. So, how exactly am I supposed to pray without ceasing? Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 13 of the Spiritual Growth Bootcamp. And today we want to talk about why prayer is an essential. Why prayer is not something that we can do without. Have you ever had this experience where it seemed like all of a sudden everything in your life is happening all at once? It's almost like all of the problem in this world is just coming crumbling at the same time. Like literally, you can count one as you are coming out of this, then there is this, and then there is this, and then there is this, and suddenly you are so overwhelmed with just so many things going on that in fact it's hard for your mind to comprehend or to even reconcile things. In fact, most of the time you experience more fatigue from the combination of the many problems and your ability to reconcile all of them at the same time than the actual problem. Because when it gets down to it, if you were told to actually itemize all the problem one by one, you know they are not a lot, but they came at you. It's almost like a banditry attack. Everything just coming crumbling all at the same time. Now, if you have experienced that, it just goes to show you that that thing you are experiencing did not happen in one day. Let me tell you what has happened. The things of the spirit are compounded in nature. If you ever know how that works in banking terms or in investment terms, compound interest is what everybody always look forward to. For example, many years ago, I kept some money in some investment in Nigeria. And since I moved to Canada, I just drop money into it every now and then. Not a lot of money, just very little amount of money that I can just forget about. And then one day I opened it. And guess what has happened? It's a lot of money that I've yielded from this investment. But what really, really happened was that for every time I get interest payout, it compound over time, meaning the total money I have plus the money that came as interest, then the next interest come out of the total, and it continue to grow like that. It's exactly the same way the things of the spirit work. It compound over time. So if you sow prayerlessness, it compound over time. If you sow into prayer, it compound over time. Now, the reason why you experience what I just described briefly is because over time, you have been able to live your life apart from prayer. The problem is, for every single day that you wake up, the realm of the spirit does not care about how you feel, tired or you feel like praying. Things are constantly going on. Things are constantly happening. The enemy is constantly at work. Now, you are constantly not responding. So what then begin to happen over time is that all of the things that were constantly going wrong in the realm of the spirit, one day compounded together to test you. And guess what happened when they did? You are not prepared. On the other side, if you give yourself to prayer, however little, every day, for every arrow that the enemy is shooting every day, something exists to already bring them down. Let me explain how the whole idea of prayer really works. For every time that you are engaging with God in conversation, it is you responding to an invitation of God to come away from where you are to where He is. Now, here is the problem. The moment you are in the place where God is, certain things can't just move near. So, for every time you respond to God, you took yourself out of where you are to where God is, and where certain things that are happening around cannot get to you. For every day that you respond to God, you dodge the bullet. But here is the problem. That bullet is not physical to our eyes. So we really don't know that bullets are flying. But guess what? Make no mistake, bullets are flying every day. They are building strongholds. They are walking. They are building a skyscraper. And then one day, everything come at you all at once. So which is why the strategy of the devil is very simple. He wants to keep us away from prayer. And how does he do it? He makes us to think about prayer in its wrong form. Well, usually we think about prayer as what we do to generate power. That is not, it's correct, but it's not complete. Prayer produces power, yes. But you see, beyond prayer producing power is also prayer being an essential. You've probably heard that before a lot of time. Essentials. When people say things are essentials, it means they are everyday things, but more importantly, they are essential to my continuous survival. When we don't think about prayer that way, we have a problem. Because until there is a need for power, we will never go to the place of prayer. But when we begin to think of prayer as essentials, we begin to understand that it is something that we can't do without every day. So the first thing that we must settle in our mind is that for every day that we don't pray, we lost a battle. Okay, is it a battle or the war? Okay, we lost a battle. For every day that we don't pray, we are losing a battle, and over time, this compound together to become a war. All right, so the way to think about prayer is that it is not just an instrument of power that you go to look for once in a while when everything has gone wrong. Then you declare a 3-day marathon fasting and you begin to pray intensively. No, you are missing the point. That way you are treating prayer as simply an instrument of power. But we must treat prayer as everyday essentials. So, which means we must win every day. Instead of looking forward to the day where we'll gather all the ammunition and summon all the armory to go and fight the war. There won't be a war in the first place if you won everyday battle. So the first thing that we must understand is that prayer is an everyday essential as much as it is a place of generating power. In fact, if we generate power on a daily basis, we become a formidable force that the enemy will think twice in waging war against us. Now, I always say that there are two sets of people. When God wants to have mercy on you, the biggest act of God's mercy is to ensure that your life does not make so much sense apart from prayer. If you have designed a life where you can have everything and you can make so much headway without prayer, you are stepping on a very dangerous ground. One of the mercy of God is that God can come to you and break down every of your support system until he brings you to the place where your dependence will be only him. So the first trap of the enemy is to bring us into that place where we can live our life apart from God. Now, here is where it gets tricky. when you are already stepping upon that ground, the enemy will play a very long game with you. In other words, you don't pray, yet you don't see any problem. You plan everything, you use your brain, you figure out things, everything work just fine. So the need for you to pray and to ask God for anything begin to decline continuously over time until you become fully carnal, yet you are still a believer going to church every day. Then there is the second set of people that as you begin to pray, the enemy does not like exactly what you are doing. So here's what he's going to do. He's going to come at you with either of two things, or in most cases, both of them. Number one, discouragement tactics to make sure that you don't continue that exercise. So here's what it's going to look like. He begins to make you meditate on the fact that this everyday exercise produces nothing. But that's the point. You are really missing the point. The point is that the everyday exercise is like an everyday investment of a very little amount of money. It's compounding in the realm of the spirit. You just cannot see it now. But the day when the need will arise for it, you will be amazed at how much of a giant you have become by just praying for 10 minutes every day. The second side of that is that the enemy, if he cannot get you to be discouraged by looking towards an immediate gratification, then he begins to throw attacks at you. And the goal of all of that is to get you to stop. But guess what? Your response must be, man always ought to pray. So we don't stop. We don't stop. We continue to pray no matter what the enemy throws at us. Why is this very important? Because when God is able to make us a man of prayer, then he has made us all there is to make us. Why? Because every other thing revolves around that system of engine, that system of power. God powers every other thing in our life through the system and the engine of prayer. It is how we reach out to him for life. It is how we reach out to him for mission. It is how we reach out to him for everything that he's trying to do in us and through us. So what you then begin to realize is that when you pray more, you fall less into temptation. Can't you remember? Jesus literally told his disciples, he said, pray so that you will not fall into temptation. When you pray more, you fall less into temptation. When you pray more, your character begins to build, because the one who prays is the one who changes. God changes us as we begin to pray and fellowship with him. As you pray, you generate more power. As you pray, you have more clarity. As you pray, you receive more energy to do the work of God. And so, prayer is that one system of advantage that we have that impacts and affects every area of our life. And so, when Jesus was saying that man ought always to pray, it is that he knows that from the beginning, this was the design. Man wasn't supposed to live apart from a communion with a holy God. It was so in the beginning with Adam and Eve in the garden. And even now, God still expects the same. So, prayer is an essential. It's more than just a place where we go to for one-off power. It's more than just a place where we go to for solution. It's more than just a place where we access every now and then to do a quick fix and then pull out of it. No, prayer is how we win everyday battle. Less over time, they come together and become a war against our soul. I hope this has been able to help you today. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. And until then, have a wonderful rest of your day.